Nitai Gaura Chandra
Chababata Shiramani Kemalananda Kanda
Sab Avatar Char Shiromani Kevalananda Kanda.
Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Paribrajak Acharya Ashtotara Sata Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Shami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai
Jai,
Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai
Jai,
ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai
Jai,
Naam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai
Jai.
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासा गौर भक्तवृंद की जय
Jai,
श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय
Jai,
वृंदावन धाम की जय
Jai,
नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय
Jai,
गंगा माई की जय
Jai,
जमुना माई की जय
Jai,
तुलसी देवी की जय
Jai,
भक्ति देवी की जय
Jai,
समवेता भक्त वृंद की जय
Jai.
गौर प्रेम आनंदे
Hari Hari Bol.
all glories to the assembled devotees
Hare Krishna.
all glories to the assembled devotees
Hare Krishna.
all glories to the assembled devotees
Hare Krishna.
all glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol
Hari Hari Bol.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Dishatharini Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavati Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Sri Caitanya Charitamrita, text number, chapter, Madhya Lila, chapter 1, text number 284.
তার আজ্ঞা লয়া গেলা প্রভুর চরণে, প্রভু তারে সমর্পিলা স্বরূপের স্থানে।
Later, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami left home and took shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri. At that time, the Lord received him and placed him under the care of Swarup Damodar for spiritual enlightenment. Purport. In this regard, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami writes in his Vilap Kushamanjali, Yo mam dushtarageha nirjala mahakupad aparaklamat sadya sandra dayam buddhi prakritita svar kripa rajubhi udrityatma sarojanindi charana prantam prapadyan swayam Sri Damodar Sach Chakaratam Aham Chaitanya Chandram Bhaje. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who, by his unreserved mercy, kindly saved me from household life, which is exactly like a blind well without water, and placed me in the ocean of transcendental joy under the care of Swarup Damodar Goswami. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Meditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Katamahyam Dadati Shapadadikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. For speaking, I'm requesting permission and blessings from all devotees, and particularly those who may be more senior by age and or advancement in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Just a brief comment here. Raghunath Das Goswami chronologically was the first of the 6 Goswamis to meet Lord Chaitanya face to face when he was just a boy. And later he took shelter of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, who encouraged him to eventually take shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, and when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received him in Jagannath Puri, he put him under the care of Sharup Damodar Goswami. And Sharup Damodar Goswami had kept notebooks, karcha, on the activities of Lord Chaitanya. And it was those notebooks that were entrusted to Raghunath Das Goswami, or at least he memorized them, and those were the source of much of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because after Swarup Damodar Goswami left this world, Raghunath Das went to Vrindavan, and there is where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was instructed by him and heard about the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Questions, comments? Okay.
So they are both of the same time, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami.
Yes, they were contemporaries. Raghunath Das was younger than, maybe 10 years younger than Lord Chaitanya, because when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, just before that, he was still a young boy, and so Lord Chaitanya took sannyas at 24, and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami was about the same age.
ব্রহ্মানন্দ ভারতীর ঘুচাইল চর্মাম্বর, এই মতো লীলা কইল 6 বৎসর।
Later, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped Brahmananda Bharati's habit of wearing deer skins. The Lord thus enjoyed his pastimes continuously for 6 years, experiencing varieties of transcendental bliss.
এই তো কহিল মধ্যলীলার সূত্রগণ, শেষ 12 বৎসরের শুনো বিবরণ।
I have thus given a synopsis of the Madhya Lila. Now, please hear the pastimes the Lord performed during the last 12 years. Purport. Thus, Srila Kaviraj Goswami, strictly following in the footsteps of Sri Vyasadeva, gives a synopsis of the Leelas of Chaitanya Charitamrita. He has given such a description at the end of each canto. In the Adi Leela, he outlined the pastimes of the Lord in the 5 stages of boyhood, leaving the details of the descriptions to Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. Now in this chapter, the pastimes that took place at the end of the Lord's life are summarized. These are described in the Madhya Lila and Antya Lila. The rest of the pastimes have been described in a synopsis in the 2nd chapter of the Madhya Lila. In this way, the author has gradually described both the Madhya Lila and Antya Lila.
Next verse.
Yes.
শ্রীরূপ রঘুনাথ পদে যার আশ, চৈতন্য চরিতামৃত কহে কৃষ্ণ দাস।
Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya Charitamrita following in their footsteps. Purport. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the Sri Caitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, first chapter, summarizing the later pastimes of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Haribol. Chapter 1, Madhya Lila. Chapter 2, this is the Shashi Shekhar Prabhu. Are you there?
Hare Krishna, yes, I'm here.
Can you read this this introduction here?
Yes. 1 second. Making it bigger on my screen. The ecstatic manifestations of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the second chapter of the Madhya Lila, the author describes the pastimes the Lord performed during the last 12 years of his life. Thus, he has also described some of the pastimes of the Antya Lila. Why he has done so is very difficult for an ordinary person to understand. The author expects that reading the pastimes of the Lord will gradually help a person awaken his dormant love of Krishna. Actually, this Caitanya Charitamrita was compiled by the author during very old age. Fearing he might not be able to finish the book, he has included a synopsis of the Antya Lila here in the second chapter. Srila Kaviraj Goswami has confirmed that the opinion of Svarup Damodar is authoritative in the matter of devotional service. Over and above this are the notes of Svarup Damodar memorized by Raghunath Das Goswami, who also helped in the compilation of the Caitanya Charitamrita. After the disappearance of Svarup Damodar Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami went to Vrindavan. At that time, the author Srila Kaviraj Goswami met Raghunath Das Goswami, by whose mercy he also could memorize all the notes. In this way, the author was able to complete this transcendental literature, Sri Caitanya Charitamrita.
Thank you. Do any questions or observations or reflections on this introduction? I have a question, if you don't mind. It says, thus he has described some of the pastimes of Antya Lila. Why he has done so is very difficult for an ordinary person to understand. What's the difficulty?
That was the question I was going to ask.
Oh, you were going to ask a question. Okay.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking that was the piece. I was thinking, well, why that specifically? Am I just missing it? But I don't. Is it because he's giving a synopsis out of place or something like that? I don't know.
And what do you mean by out of place?
Well, because the one piece that Prabhupada says here is that the reason why he wrote this was because he was in very old age. It was compiled by the author during fearing he might not be able to finish the book. He has included a synopsis of the Antya Lila here in the second chapter. Not that that's really connected to that, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a good understanding of or reason why he would say that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Is he referring very difficult the last 12 years?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that is because he manifested the transcendental ecstasies, which is Srimati Radharani manifested. and in condition, that's definitely very, very difficult and for the ordinary people. That's why it's always he stayed with the confidential associates because those manifestations are not normal in the material world. That's what I understand.
Okay. So we have two theories. One is that the actual subject matter, as Krishna Kirtan Prabhu said, is difficult to understand since it's very elevated. And the other theory is because here you have, this is the Madhya Lila. So why include in the Madhya Lila the summary of the Antya Lila? And Srila Prabhupada comments, there's a brief comment saying that perhaps he was feeling that he was an old man and he might not be able to finish the whole book. So those could both be true, or either one of them could be true, or there might be another reason. That's all I could say. Anybody have another reason? No?
Isn't he saying that he included because he didn't know how long he's going to live?
Yes, that's the one of the theories. Yeah, because he doesn't know how long he's going to live, so he included it in this. Even though this is the introduction to the Madhya Lila, he included in this synopsis and the summary the pastimes, a summary of the pastimes of the Antya Lila as well. Which it's some of those are already included. We're already included in chapter 1. The latter part of chapter 1 described the first part of the Antya Lila, like we read about Gopinath Patanayaka and some other things. Those were all pastimes that you'll find in the Antya Lila. The Antya Lila being, when did the Antya Lila start?
Basically, at the age of 24, after 24, Antya Lila started. But still it is divided into, again, two.
Okay, and so then with the more, so what are those two?
And that 6 years of his travel and 18 years of his stay in Jagannath Puri.
Yeah. And so the first 6 of those 18 where he was still more publicly involved, and the last 12 he was particularly Lord Chaitanya was manifesting his devotional ecstasy in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So both of those parts are the Antya Lila, first 6 years, last 12 years. Yeah. Okay. Just thought these are interesting. So then, I checked on the Veda base, and also I have books that include all of Srila Prabhupada's lectures on Caitanya Caritamrita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And guess how many lectures Srila Prabhupada gave on this chapter, from this chapter? Any idea?
You said what is the question he said?
Come on. So I checked on the Veda base, and I would like you to consider how many lectures, classes that Srila Prabhupada gave based on this chapter of the Caitanya Caritamrita, chapter 2, Madhya Lila. You can take it, you can guess, and you don't have to be right. It's okay. I'm doing this just so to kind of emphasize the point. You don't mind.
100 plus?
Huh?
And more than 100?
Good guess, but no. He gave exactly 0 classes on this chapter of Caitanya Charitamrita, which is an interesting point. So I'm proposing that we read a little bit just to get the flavor and then go to the next chapter because of that. Because it's and devotees can read it at their own leisure individually, but you'll see it's a very elevated subject matter that it's very difficult for an ordinary person like me and perhaps you to understand. Okay? You'll see. We'll read some and you get a flavor and then we'll see. Okay.
This is sense.
Oh, really? Vichchedesmin prabhor antya lila sutranuvarnane gaurasya Krishna vichcheda palapadya nuvarnyate. While relating in synopsis form the last division of the pastimes of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, in this chapter I shall describe the Lord's transcendental ecstasy, which appears like madness due to his separation from Krishna. Purport. In this second chapter, the activities of Lord Caitanya that took place after the Lord accepted sannyas are generally described. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is specifically mentioned here as being Gaura, or of fair complexion. Krishna is generally known to be blackish, but when he is absorbed in the thought of the gopis, who are all of fair complexion, Krishna himself also becomes fair. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu in particular felt separation from Krishna very deeply, exactly like a lover who is dejected in separation from the beloved. Such feelings, which were expressed by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu for nearly 12 years at the end of his pastimes, are described in brief in this second chapter of Madhya Lila. So it's interesting here that by thinking of the thought of the gopis, Lord Krishna's complexion becomes Gaura, golden, yeah, fair. Okay.
জয় জয় শ্রী চৈতন্য, জয় নিত্যানন্দ, জয় অদ্বৈত চন্দ্র, জয় গৌর ভক্তবৃন্দ.
All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all glories to Lord Nityananda, all glories to Advaita Chandra, and all glories to all the devotees of the Lord.
শেষ যে রহিল প্রভুর দ্বাদশ বৎসর, কৃষ্ণের বিয়োগ স্ফূর্তি হয় নিরন্তর.
During his last 12 years, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu always manifested all the symptoms of ecstasy in separation from Krishna.
শ্রী রাধিকার চেষ্টা যেন উদ্ধব দর্শনে, এই মতো দশা প্রভুর হয় রাত্রি দিনে.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's state of mind, day and night, was practically identical to Radharani's state of mind when Uddhava came to Vrindavan to see the gopis.
নিরন্তর হয় প্রভুর বিরহ উন্মাদ, ভ্রমময় চেষ্টা সদা, প্রলাপময় বাদ.
The Lord constantly exhibited a state of mind reflecting the madness of separation. All his activities were based on forgetfulness, and his talks were always based on madness.
রোমকূপে রক্তোদ্গম দন্ত সব হালে, ক্ষণে অঙ্গ ক্ষীণ হয়, ক্ষণে অঙ্গ ফুলে.
Blood flowed from all the pores of his body, and all his teeth were loosened. At one moment, his whole body became slender, and in another moment, his whole body became fat.
গম্ভীর ভিতরে রাত্রে নাহি নিদ্রা লব, ভিত্তে মুখ শির ঘষে, ক্ষত হয় সব।
The small room beyond the corridor is called the Gambira. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to stay in that room, but he did not sleep for a moment. All night, he used to grind his mouth and head on the wall, and his face sustained injuries all over.
তিন দ্বারে কপাট, প্রভু যাইন বাহিরে, কভু সিংহ দ্বারে পড়ে, কভু সিন্ধু নীরে।
Although the three doors of the house were always closed, the Lord would nonetheless go out and sometimes would be found at the Jagannath temple before the gate known as Singhadvara. And sometimes the Lord would fall flat into the sea.
চটক পর্বত দেখি গোবর্ধন ভ্রমে, ধায়া চলে আর্তনাদ করিয়া ক্রন্দনে।
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would also run very fast across the sand dunes, mistaking them for Govardhan. As he ran, he would wail and cry loudly. Purport. Because of the winds of the sea, sometimes the sand would form dunes. Such sand dunes are called Chatak Parvat. Instead of seeing these sand dunes simply as hills of sand, the Lord would take them to be Govardhan Hill. Sometimes he would run toward these dunes at high speed, crying very loudly, expressing the state of mind exhibited by Radharani. Thus, such Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and his pastimes. His state of mind brought him the atmosphere of Vrindavan and Govardhan Hill, and thus he enjoyed the transcendental bliss of separation and meeting. So this Chatak Parvat, there's a Gaudiya Math temple on one of the sand dunes near Jagannath and Jagannath Puri, where Lord Chaitanya ran like this. So in material psychology, when someone has some kind of traumatic experience, things that remind the person of the traumatic experience triggers their remembrance of the original traumatic experience. For example, in the early days of psychology, they used to do experiments which would be considered unethical today. So, but there was a guy named behaviorism, the founder of behaviorism. He thought that, well, let's take a young boy and bring a rabbit, a white rabbit, close to him, and then give him a little shock. So the shock, doing it over and over again, even without the shock, guess what happened when he saw a rabbit?
He acted the same way.
Yeah, he started to get anxious and cry, right? Little boy. So then it became not just a little rabbit, but any white fuzzy stuff. Like his grandfather came over, got a white beard, and just seeing the white beard, the child became frantic. Cry. So you follow. So, I mean, this is a traumatic flip side of this. Just anything that has a slight resemblance or connection. Of course, everything has a connection to Krishna, but particularly here in this case, the Govardhan Hill or peacock feather or the sound of a flute. These things would remind Lord Chaitanya of Krishna in Vrindavan, and it would stimulate, instead of anxiety, great happiness and ecstasy in remembering Krishna. Comments? Questions? What did you, so far, you saw some of the things, some of the ecstatic manifestations that Lord Caitanya had. Do you remember any of those? Did any of them stick out to you? They're pretty graphic.
Blood was coming out of his pores. This always like fascinated me. This section that, I mean, how does this happen? Like his body's going slender. His like, and then he's rubbing his face on the wall.
Yeah. These are things that look like madness, right?
So like if you look up like Caitanya Mahaprabhu on like Google at large or whatever, you know, people who are not in the devotional line or they're trying to explain him, they say that he had some kind of like psychological disorder and like epilepsy or something.
Seizure disorders. Yeah. Yes. And in fact, there was one supposed saint in Bengal who also imitated, he became very famous imitating these type of ecstasy of Lord Caitanya. Not just one, but several, but one famous one. And perhaps he had epilepsy. But Lord Caitanya's, blood from the pores of his body, his teeth becoming loose. If your teeth becomes loose, you're going to go to the dentist, right? And it doesn't usually, it's not a good sign of your health, but Lord Caitanya's teeth can become loose and then come back. This rubbing your face, the fat and thin, these things are not very understandable by us. And although it was mentioned in the introduction that Krishnadas Kaviraj was explaining these because by hearing about them, one might develop love of Krishna. They're pretty unusual, would you say? Yeah. So I thought at this point we can, it will go on for about 100 verses similar to these of describing Lord Chaitanya's ecstatic display of separation from Krishna. I'd like right now it says that it was exactly like what Srimati Radharani expressed when she got the message from Uddhava, Lord Krishna's friend and messenger. So I'd like to read that portion of the Krishna book about Lord Krishna sending Uddhava as a messenger to Vrindavan to give a message to the gopis and the residents of Vrindavan. Okay. Could you start reading Kavita? Oh, and if anything comes up, a question, just raise your hand because there are some things that might be questionable here. Okay.
Uddhav visits Vrindavan. Nanda Maharaj returned to Vrindavan without Krishna and Balram. He was accompanied only by the cowherd boys and men. It was certainly a very pathetic scene for the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Srimati Radharani, and all the other residents of Vrindavan. Many devotees have tried to make adjustments to Krishna's being away from Vrindavan because, according to expert opinion, Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, never goes even a step out of Vrindavan. He always remains there. The explanation of expert devotees is that Krishna was actually not absent from Vrindavan. He came back with Nand Maharaj as promised. When Krishna was starting for Mathura on the chariot driven by Akrura and the gopis were blocking the way, Krishna assured them that he was coming back just after finishing his business in Mathura. He told them not to be overwhelmed and in this way pacified them. But when he failed to come back with Nand Maharaj, it appeared that he either cheated them or could not keep his promise. Expert devotees, however, have decided that Krishna was neither a cheater nor a breaker of promises. Krishna, in his original identity, returned with Nand Maharaj and stayed with the gopis and Mother Yashoda in his bhav expansion. Krishna and Balram remained in Mathura, not in their original forms, but in their expansions as Vasudev and Sankarshan. The real Krishna and Balram were in Vrindavan in their bhav manifestation, whereas in Mathura they appeared in the Prabhav and Vaibhav expansions. This is the expert opinion of advanced devotees of Krishna. Externally, however, they were absent from Vrindavan. Therefore, when Nand Maharaj was preparing to return to Vrindavan, there was some discussion between him and the boys concerning how they could live in separation. The conclusion to separate was reached by mutual agreement.
Do we have any questions or comments or observations so far? So the Krishna and Balaram that were in Mathura were expansions of the Adi Purusha Govinda Krishna as Vasudeva and Sankarshan. So, and Balaram is the first Balaram, then Balaram expands as Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So the original Sankarshan there is Balaram. Okay.
Vasudev and Devaki, who happened to be the real parents of Krishna and Balaram, wanted to keep them now because of the death of Kans. While Kans was alive, Krishna and Balaram were kept under the protection of Nand Maharaj in Vrindavan. Now, naturally, the father and mother of Krishna and Balaram wanted them to remain, specifically for the reformatory function of purification, the sacred thread ceremony. They also wanted to give them a proper education, for this is the duty of the father. Another consideration was that all the friends of Kans outside Mathura were planning to attack Mathura. For that reason also, Krishna's presence was required. Krishna did not want Vrindavan disturbed by enemies like Dantavakra and Jarasandh. If Krishna were to go to Vrindavan, these enemies would not only attack Mathura, but would go on to Vrindavan, and the peaceful inhabitants of Vrindavan would be disturbed. Krishna therefore decided to remain in Mathura, and Nanda Maharaj went back to Vrindavan. Although the inhabitants of Vrindavan felt separation from Krishna, the resulting ecstasy, bhav, caused them to perceive that Krishna was always present with them by his Lila or pastimes. Since Krishna had departed from Vrindavan and gone to Mathura, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, especially Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, Srimati Radharani, the gopis and the cowherd boys were simply thinking of Krishna at every step. They were thinking, here Krishna was playing in this way. Here Krishna was blowing his flute. Krishna was joking with us in this way. And Krishna was embracing us like this. This is called Lila Smaran, and it is the process of association with Krishna most recommended by great devotees. Even Lord Caitanya, when he was at Puri, enjoyed Lila Smaran association with Krishna. Those in the most exalted position of devotional service and ecstasy can live with Krishna always by remembering his pastimes. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us a transcendental literature entitled Krishna Bhavanamrit, which is full with Krishna's pastimes. Exalted devotees can remain absorbed in Krishna thought by reading such books. Any book of Krishna Lila, even this book, Krishna, or our teachings of Lord Caitanya, is actually solace for devotees feeling separation from Krishna. That Krishna and Balaram did not return to Vrindavan can be adjusted as follows. They did not break their promise to return to Vrindavan, nor were they absent, but their presence was necessary in Mathura.
Okay, any comments, questions, observations? No? Krishna Kirtan, go ahead. I figured you'd have something to say.
Thank you. It's a nice, very nice explanation that how one can take association of Krishna by remembering Krishna's Lila.
Even this book, Srila Prabhupada, even this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. Just one book is enough also.
And then the Chaitanya, of course, this is the Krishna book, but also Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are not different from Krishna's pastimes as well. Yeah.
And so this last sentence is mentioned. Krishna and Balaram did not return to Vrindavan can be adjusted as follows. They did not break their promise to return to Vrindavan, nor were they absent, but their presence was necessary in Mathura. Was it to counteract the people's statement? Some other people say, why Krishna didn't leave the gopis like in that state?
Yes.
So,
how far is it between Mathura and Vrindavan?
Yeah, interesting. For at this time, it's very 30 minutes or something. But I heard that the Dham expands. In the past, it was more distance or something, or closer.
Well, there's some people say that we don't find that. We don't find that, as far as I know, in any of Srila Prabhupada's books. It may be, so I can't say that for sure. But so Govardhan, how far away is Govardhan from Gokul? It's quite a ways nowadays. So sometimes it expands, but still, Mathura isn't that far from Vrindavan. I mean, it's Akrura took Lord Krishna to Vrindavan on a chariot drive, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
And he didn't spend overnight, so it was not even a day's journey. So now it takes maybe an hour and a half. So it's not that far. So you could think, well, Krishna, how long did Lord Krishna stay in Mathura? Anybody know? He went there as a boy of 12, 13. Krishna Kirtan, you were going to say something.
Sometimes this question also comes because you mentioned Gokul, distance of Gokul and Govardhan. My question was Vrindavan and Govardhan, because he used to go to Govardhan from Vrindavan.
Yeah, still it's not far. It's not far.
It's very far.
No, Govardhan is far, but I was thinking Mathura. Yeah.
That is not very, yeah. Govardhan is very far. And I wonder how he used to go. So then devotees was mentioning the Dham expands and Dham changes like that. Anyway, it is the Lord's desire, because there are two things. One is that we know that why he did not go back. He told gopis also just to increase. When he met in Mathura, in Kurukshetra, he mentioned that, right? Just to increase your love for me. But that I do this, I did this. Then again we read that Lord Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. That's another. He always is there. Just he's showering his mercy upon his devotees in this way of The highest form of love can be expressed in the mode of separation. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna comes in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to experience that bhava.
This particular bhava that's being described right here, yeah.
But
And
ordinary people understand.
go ahead.
Ordinary people cannot understand because we haven't reached, we haven't understood what is our Lord and what is love, and forget about love in separation is very deep.
Can you read here from this in the meantime?
Yes, yeah. In the meantime, Uddhava, a cousin brother of Krishna's, came to see Krishna from Dwarka. He was the son of Vasudev's brother and was almost the same age as Krishna. His bodily features resembled Krishna's almost exactly. After Krishna returned from his teacher's home, he was pleased to see Uddhava, who happened to be his dearest friend. Krishna wanted to send him to Vrindavan with a message to the residents to pacify their deep feelings of separation.
Question, a couple of questions. So, Uddhava, where did he come from?
Right. That's what I also had.
Dwarka, it says Dwarka, right?
Yeah.
Well, we thought that Dwarka was manufactured or built after when Krishna left Mathura.
Right.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So I don't know how that works. I looked in the verses in the Srimad Bhagavatam verse by verse. I didn't mention this, so I was surprised here. So, and also this says that right after Lord Krishna returned from Sandipani Muni's ashram, this is when this happened, isn't it? So how long did he stay in Sandipani Muni's ashram? 64 days and nights, right? Because he learned those 64 arts at that time. So he stayed 64. He was instructed during the day, and by the evening he'd know those things. And so that was right after he had come to Mathura. So this is very shortly after Lord Krishna had gone to Mathura that he's sending Uddhava with a message. Okay.
I need more clarity on this also, actually. So you mentioning that Dwaraka was existing, and I feel and that is it Krishna and Balram went to Sandipani after the Jarasandha, after the wars with Jarasandha?
No, before that.
Even before itself.
Yeah.
So it means then Krishna was still in Mathura then. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You had Visnugadā Prabhu, you had asked this question, but I would like to know how long was Sri Krishna in Mathura.
Well, that's a good question. So there's some references. As far as I know, Srila Prabhupada never commented on it. But according to some references in the Goswami literature, you'll find that he was in his late 20s when he left Mathura and to go to Dwarka. So that means maybe at least a dozen years. At least a dozen years he was staying in Mathura. And then when he went to Dwarka, one of the first things that occurred at that time, leaving Mathura and going to, one of the reasons he left Mathura also, because Jarasandha was always attacking, but then he married Rukmini. It's one of the first things that happened in Dwarka. And then at Rukmini's wedding ceremony, you know who was there? Who was some of the guests at the wedding ceremony? The 5 Pandavas. The 5 Pandavas were there at the wedding ceremony. So this was prior to them being exiled and stuff like that, all that. Okay, Krishna Kirtan Prabhu?
Yeah. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tatheva bhajamyaham. Krishna is very responsive. He responds in proportion to the devotee's advancement in devotional service. Thus, as the gopis were thinking of Krishna in separation 24 hours a day, so Krishna was also always thinking of the gopis, Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, and the other residents of Vrindavan. Although he appeared to be away from them, he could understand how they were transcendently aggrieved. So he immediately wanted to send Uddhava to give them a message of solace. Uddhava is described as the most exalted personality in the Vishnu dynasty, being almost equal to Krishna. He was a great friend of Krishna's, and being the direct student of Brihaspati, the teacher and priest of the heavenly planets, he was very intelligent and sharp in decision. Intellectually, he was highly qualified. Krishna, being his very loving friend, wanted to send Uddhava to Vrindavan just to study the highly elevated ecstatic devotional service practiced there. Even if one is highly elevated in material education and is even the disciple of Brihaspati, he still has to learn from the gopis and the other residents of Vrindavan how to love Krishna to the highest degree. It was Krishna's special favor to Uddhava to send him to Vrindavan with a message for the residents there, which was meant to pacify them. Lord Krishna is also named Hari, which means one who takes away all distress from the surrendered souls. Lord Chaitanya states that there cannot be any time be a worship as exalted as that realized by the gopis. Being very anxious about the gopis' grief, Krishna talked with Uddhava and politely requested him to go to Vrindavan. Shaking Uddhava's hand with his own hands, he said, "My dear gentle friend Uddhava, please go immediately to Vrindavan and try to pacify my father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi, and the gopis. They are grief-stricken, as if suffering from the great ailments. Go and give them a message. I hope their ailments will be partially relieved. The gopis are always absorbed in thoughts of me. They have dedicated body, desire, life, and soul to me. I'm anxious not only for the gopis, but for anyone who sacrifices society, friendship, love, and personal comforts for me. It is my duty to protect such exalted devotees. The gopis are the most dear. They always think of me in such a way that they remain overwhelmed and almost dead in anxiety due to the separation from me. They are keeping alive simply by thinking that I am returning to them very soon."
Yes. So this is, there cannot be at any time be a worship as exalted as that realized by the gopis. There's a verse that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sang to Lord Jagannath during the Ratha Yatra ceremony. Sometimes at the beginning of the Ratha Yatra ceremony, there are various shlokas chanted, but there Lord Chaitanya chanted various shlokas also just at the outset of the Ratha Yatra ceremony, Ratha Yatra parade. And it'd probably be interesting or useful. It probably for us to chant those also. So perhaps you know that Naham Vipra na Narapati na Pishut. You know this one? Then it ends with Gopi Bharata Padakamalyo Dāsa Dāsa Dāsanutasa. I'm not a Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra. I'm not a Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vaishya, or Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, or Sannyasi. I'm just a servant of Krishna, the master of the gopis. So he said that during the outset of the Ratha Yatra ceremony, reminding us of that. Shashi Shekhar, can you read a couple of paragraphs? Are you still there?
Hare Krishna, I'm here. I'm in the temple, kind of running around in the prasadam hall, so it might be difficult.
Running in the prasadam hall. Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, I'm preparing. There's brahmacharis coming, so I'm preparing some plates for them and stuff. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Requested by Lord Krishna. Yeah, sure. Uddhava immediately left on his chariot and carried the message to Gokul. He approached Vrindavan at sunset when the cows were returning home from the pasturing ground. Uddhava and his chariot were covered by the dust raised by the hooves of the cows. He saw bulls running after cows for mating. Other cows with overladen milk bags were running after the calves to feed them with milk. Uddhava saw that the entire land of Vrindavan was filled with white cows and their calves, running here and there all over Gokula. So they weren't just in pens, right? And he could hear the sound of milking. Every residential house in Vrindavan was decorated for the worship of the sun god and the fire god and for the reception of guests, as Shashi Shekhar Prabhu is doing. Cows, Brahmins, and demigods. Every home was sanctified by lights and incense. All over Vrindavan, there were nice gardens filled with flowers and the sounds of humming bees and singing birds. The lakes were filled with lotus flowers and with ducks and swans. Uddhava entered the house of Nanda Maharaj and was received as a representative of Vasudev. That's Krishna. Nanda Maharaj offered him a sitting place and sat down with him to ask about messages from Krishna. Oh, so he knew, yes. Balaram and other family members in Mathura. He could understand that Uddhava was a very confidential friend of Krishna's and therefore must have come with good messages. My dear Uddhava, he said, how is my friend Vasudeva enjoying life? He is now released from the prison of Kansa, and he is now with his friends and his children, Krishna and Balaram, so he must be very happy. Tell me about him and his welfare. We are also very happy that Kamsa, that most sinful demon, has been killed. He was always envious of the family of the Yadus, his relatives. Now, because of his sinful activities, he is dead and gone along with all of his brothers. So he doesn't say that Krishna killed him because of his sinful activities, right? Please let us know whether Krishna now remembers his father and mother and his friends and companions in Vrindavan. Does he like to remember his cows, his gopis, his Govardhan hill, his pasturing grounds in Vrindavan? Or has he now forgotten all these? Is there any possibility of his coming back to his friends and relatives so we can again see his beautiful face with its raised nose and lotus-like eyes? We remember how he saved us from the forest fire, how he saved us from the great snake, Kaliya, in the Jamuna, and how he saved us from so many other demons, and we simply think of how much we are obliged to him for giving us protection in many dangerous situations. My dear Uddhava, when we think of Krishna's beautiful face and eyes and his different activities here in Vrindavan, we become so overwhelmed that our activities cease. We simply think of Krishna, how he used to smile and how he looked upon us with grace. When we go to the banks of the Jamuna or the lakes of Vrindavan or near Govardhan Hill or the pasturing fields, we see the impressions of Krishna's footprints are still on the surface of the earth. Wow. We remember him playing in those places because he was constantly visiting them. When his appearance within our minds becomes manifest, we immediately become absorbed in thoughts of him. Hare Krishna. So this is the beginning of Uddhava's discussion and giving the message of Krishna to the residents of Vrindavan. I think we should stop there. I thought this was appropriate because Janmashtami is coming up next week on Monday, so it's relevant. I mean, it's always relevant, but Krishna and Vrindavan there. Okay. Questions, comments? Yeah.
In the Uddhava came to Gokul. Like, can you go up a little bit paragraph and this paragraph before when he came to Gokul, and then say next one, yeah. No, yeah, right, this one. Uddhava immediately left his chariot and carried the message to Gokula. He approached Vrindavan at sunset. So is Gokula and in Vrindavan, is mentioned? Is Gokula is a different place, right, where Krishna used to live before? From Gokul, they came to Vrindavan.
Yeah. I mean, so how far apart they are. There's a map. You can see the different places around Gokul, Vrindavan, etc. And then there's Nandagram is another place.
Why he did not write Vrindavan directly? That's my point. Chariot and carried the message to Gokula.
Well, you could the whole area is also described as Gokul as well. So, just like you say, there's Gokul Vrindavan and Goloka Vrindavan. Gokul Vrindavan means that the Vrindavan here on this earth. So, just like there's a Mathura city, but there's also a district of Mathura. So the whole place is also Mathura. You follow?
So we can say all the 12 forests are Gokul.
Like that. Another point about, I forgot about saying that, how long Krishna stayed at Mathura. So after Krishna left and married Rukmini, then he married Rukmini. Then he went to the Swayamvar of Draupadi. If you remember this, he and Balaram, and there was another person who was there at the Swayamvar of Draupadi in the audience, and that was Pradyumna. Pradyumna. Yeah, Pradyumna was there. So Pradyumna, and how is it that Pradyumna is there? Because, so Pradyumna was he was born, but he grew to majority immediately, just like Vyasadeva. So that was the Swayamvar of Draupadi. So Krishna was married. He had at least one child, but the Pandavas, they hadn't married yet because Bhim had a relationship with Hidimbi, but they hadn't married Draupadi yet. So this was just after the house of Lak. They had, right? They reappeared after the house of Lak. They were in the forest for some time, and that's when they married Draupadi at that time. Does that make sense?
So Krishna was at Mathura when he got married to Rukmini?
No, that's when he left Mathura.
Yeah, okay.
And so the Pandavas were at the wedding ceremony. You can read that in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And at the end of his stay in Mathura, when he first goes to Mathura, Lord Krishna, after he kills Kamsa, Akrura, his uncle who brought him there to Mathura, invited him to his house. Said, "You want to come over to my house, please?" So you know what Lord Krishna said? He said, "Yeah, I'll come, but later." So then, shortly before he left Mathura, he went to Akrura's house, like he said he would later. And while at Akrura's house, he told Akrura he wanted him to go to Hastinapur and to talk to Dhritarashtra, because he knew that Dhritarashtra and it was conspiring with his sons to do some mischief against the Pandavas. So that was prior to the sending the Pandavas to the house of Lak. Do you follow?
Yeah.
Because Krishna sent him there. And then Akrura went there to Dhritarashtra, to Hastinapur, and he said, don't just give in to your wicked sons. And Dhritarashtra says, well, what can I do? It's fate. It's fate. There's nothing I can do about it. Which meant he didn't want to do anything about it. He wanted. So all these things were going on. It's interesting, the interactions and the chronology of this Srimad Bhagavatam and Mahabharata together. Anyway, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? Does that what I said make sense?
Yeah. So all we understand is that how Krishna constantly remembers for his devotees.
Yes. He knew that Dhritarashtra was plotting. How did he know? Well, he's God. and he sent to Kura, and Kura tried, but it didn't work. So still they were sent to the house of lack and all that. Hare Krishna. Thank you all. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa
कृपा सिंधुभ्यो पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
Thank you, Visnugadā Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, everyone.